This lecture has been made available to you courtesy of the American Numismatic Society.
He's well known to many of you. He is in the lucky position of being both an independent researcher and based in London. You know, dreams for me in both regards. His specialty is Roman Republican bronzes, especially those of the Second Punic War, and what various numismatic phenomena like anonymous struck bronzes and the many various overstrikes reveal about interactions between Italians and Carthaginians in that context. His research has appeared in many prestigious journals, but immensely useful is his website, I think, Roman Republican Coins and Books. As he mentioned in the pre-circulated version of this talk, this research is very much stems from his friendships and professional collaborations with both Roberto Russo and Rick Wichonka, with whom he co-signs this paper with Roberto Russo. So welcome Andrew McCabe, and we look forward to the paper, The Roman Struck Bronze Coinage of Luceria and Canusium.
Thank you. Good morning, all. And let me share my screen. And can you see the screen?
Not yet.
Okay, well, let me just try that again.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning. So this odyssey started nearly 20 years ago. I was talking to Rick Wichonka in the early 2000s and had proposals to make about a new way to look at the coins of Luceria and Canusium. And Rick told me that Roberto Russo was looking at exactly the same thing. And so about 15 years ago, myself and Roberto got together, and Roberto was preparing a catalogue of these coins that looked at a new way to look at them, which basically said there was two mints with mint mark L, and that was exactly the same thing that I had in parallel come across. So we decided to work collaboratively. This paper is about the type catalog that is the end result. We worked together on this until Roberto sadly died in 2012. And I spent the next number of years doing foundational studies, looking at historical contexts, finds, the evidence in the coins, especially overstrikes and style. And I'm not repeating that foundational information here. This isn't a discussion paper, it's a type catalog. But what I will do is give a quick overview as to how it was that we got to the basic arrangement, which does include some material from previous research. First of all, I have to start with Baron Dai. In the 1860s, Dai, at the Bibliothèque Nationale, to which he donated his collection to, published a 4-volume series on anonymous struck bronzes and coins with symbols. And for the coins of, as was then known, Luceria with L mint mark, he identified that they actually came in 2 entirely separate styles, and likely from 2 mints. And on this slide, they're represented by the coins with either L or T. And in the paper, I discussed how the bottom row, T2 sextantes, differ in style from the L1 and L3 sextantes, and Dai recognized that. And essentially, had we continued in that line from the 1860s, this paper would not need to have been written because we would already have the 2 mint arrangement. However, everybody after that said this is too difficult, and particularly it's lacking images, and went to a purely weight-based arrangement that merged what I now know to be 2 mints. So we're now separating them again and taking it as putting a type catalog together. So this is the essence of the 2 mints. On the left, we have the mint, which was Luceria City. And the coins are struck on thick, flat flans with very classically Greek style images and strongly beveled edges. And the coins on the right are what I believe were struck in the field mint associated with the command of Luceria against Hannibal in the field in Apulia. And its styles are more akin to the Italian city mints, city coinages of the time, and they're struck on thin flans, wider typically for the same denomination and weight, less beveled and often overstrikes, so you can't really see what the flans are basically. So I'm going to do a quick historical overview. This is a catch-up. So early in the Second Punic War after Cannae, Hannibal basically controlled all of Apulia, except for the Roman strongholds in Luceria, Canusium, and Venusia. And in the following years, there was a lot of fighting that gradually took place, but it was slow. In other words, the Romans basically weren't looking for pitched battles. Fabius Cunctator said, "Let's better, wait them out," basically. And there was a command established under Luceria city in the field by the younger Quintus Fabius Maximus, somewhere in the region of Herdonia, Ausculum, or Acre. We don't know exactly where, but basically established a command there at which he conducted the battles against forces of Hannibal. That is where the second series of L mint mark coins were very likely struck in. The back and forth continued over a number of years as the Romans gradually took back cities. But particularly I want to note, by the time that we got to 209 BC, the Romans by that stage had recaptured all the main cities, but the forces of Hannibal were still doing aggressive attacks against Roman cities, and particularly in 209 and 207, in the region of Canusium, in fact, really quite severe battles against the Romans. And that one or both of those dates was very likely when a large series of irregular coins was struck that has the style of coins of Canusium and coins of the mint mark P. So that's the historical context in which to background all this. The find context, this is presented before by me in Taormina in 2015. What it shows in simple terms is that the coins with L mint mark, including the silver, which are in red, were struck more to the north west, and the coins with LT silver were struck more to the southwest, southeast than L coins. And that's why when we say that there's two L mint marked series, that's why I place one in Luceria itself and the other, which is to the southeast, in the field. So that's why the LT ones, which are found more to the southeast than the L ones, are the field mint and not the city mint. Then we find that the coins with P mint mark, which is a continuation of the same series, are struck further to the southwest, southeast of those with LT, and are strongly correlated with the coins with CA mint mark, which is Canusium. So from my perspective, what that reflects is that the battles in the field and the activities in the field in the vicinity of Canusium in 210, 209, 28, 27 was associated with two Roman garrisons, one the garrison at Canusium and one the army in the field, which was then striking coins with P mint marks. So the P coinage is closely associated with that of Canusium. This information has been presented before, but it helps to understand the flow of the coins that I'm going to start presenting. So this is a type catalog, and I can't obviously present the 99 issues on the type catalog with all the detail, But this is an example of one coin and how I document it. And I've been very, very adamant about making sure that every reference in Paris, Hanover, the ANS, British Museum, and every coin cited by Michael Crawford in RRC have been checked visually, and to cite all of many of major museum examples. So together with the photographed examples here, we have basically 225 examples now cited or illustrated and easily to access. That kind of proves the catalogue is what it is. Under each coin, where necessary, I add a commentary that explains why, for example, we have a difference with what RRC said. So in this particular case, the RRC catalogue says that there is mint marks on both obverse and reverse, sometimes missing. And our clarification is that there's a mint mark either on the obverse or on the reverse, and never both. So that's a sort of small detail that we've been classifying. The other thing I thought very important is to make sure that there is a extremely solid correlation backward and forward with RRC, because the coin types identified in RRC do exist, and where there is a coin cited in RRC, that coin fits into our catalogue, and it's very important to show where it does fit. In many cases, there's a 1-to-2 or a 2-to-1 correlation rather than a 1-to-1. And the reasons for that, where there's a 1-to-2 correlation, that means that Crawford classified a coin as one issue, and we're saying it needs to be split into two for stylistic reasons or some variable detail of the design. And a 2-to-1 is where Crawford classified a coin in two numbers due to weight, and we're saying that our weight statistics, in fact, show there was only one issue and that you cannot separate them. I think the correlation table is, in fact, one of the most important things of the study, that essentially is the proof. So we're now going to move on to the catalogue itself. So that was 10 minutes on the background, and this will take me about 20 minutes to run through. And the scope of the catalogue is divided into 5 mint areas. The Luceria City Mint, which is Luceria L, that's the L group. Then the Field Mint, which was wherever the Roman forces were between Luceria and Canusium. And that was the T, A, and P issues, roughly in sequence. And that mint will have moved. And the CA, which is the garrison at Canusium itself. And I place it in this order because the CA issue is on average heavier than the P issue, and therefore more likely overlapped with the latter part of the T series and the P series, and therefore I think this is approximately the right order to place things in. So I'm going to go straight into the catalogue, and starting with the L series, this is the Luceria City series, and this series came to an abrupt halt, and it halted about 211 or 210, and probably because it was no longer needed, because by that time the activities in the field was where the action was, and there was probably no need for a separate large garrison mint. I described its physical characteristics before, so I'm going to describe its evolution now. Now, the first diagram, this takes from Olivier Legrand, who published in BSNF in 2014, identifying 4 coins linked by die link. And what's very interesting about these 4 coins is that there's 2 different denominations. And that's a very unusual situation in a die link series. And so what we have is an uncia with an unusual type, which has got 5 sailors rather than 2 on the obverse deck, and that die links to another uncia with a different reverse, which links to a sextans in style. And has no mint mark on the reverse, but that die links itself to a Simuntia, which die links to without any marks, either a value or mint mark, which die links to another Simuntia with mint mark. So it's a quite extraordinary series of links. And then these link into, by style, into a sextans and quadrans, and the quadrans has got an unusual dot arrangement, a dot behind the head and two below the head, and the sextans quite an unusual bunched up cloak on Mercury and no hairband. So they're quite a distinctive. I believe that these coins were accompanied by the ice grab cast semis and cast as of the RC 43 series, making up the full series. So that was an example of how it is that we have analyzed series to say all these coins belong together. I'm now going to actually run through the coins series by series, and for the next 15 slides or so, all the coins are proportionally the correct slide. So the coins are I've scaled things to the size of the coins. So this is the first series, which we think was struck about a 96 gram standard. It's about the same standard the ice grabber were struck. And then this was a fairly small, fairly rare coins. Moving into the main Luceria City Mint series, which in the period 2014-2012 BC, some very large and impressive coins that includes dextans, that's 10 uncia with denomination mark S ... and quincunx with a 5 dots, that's 5 uncia, but really magnificent types on large coins, very well made. Now, we had a dilemma as to where the dextans and quincunx fit in the series. Do they fit with the city mint or the field mint? And because of the arrangement, compare the hair of the quincunx with the hair of the semis, we realized that they had to fit with the city mint because it's exactly the same arrangement of the way the hair falls and the back of the head and so on. So the lower denominations and all the prow denominations on this main series have got bulbous prow stems. They're very, very similar style. One could not possibly say these were different series, but in RC, they're scattered all over the place. So you have to look at the coins and see their style. This then runs into a second die engraver for reverses one that was employed. And he continues to, they continue to strike coins of the same heavy style, but now with more upright prow stems and a slightly different reverse style. And then about 211 BC, they reduced the weight from 81 grams to what was the final city series of a weight of 54 grams. These coins have got completely upright prow stems, so the same denomination series, the same dextans and quincunx. They're very, very easy to distinguish, but some denominations could be confused with that intermediate series, and for that reason I'm going to show a weight diagram and say that for every single coin that we looked at throughout all the series, we looked at the weights, and this we see a very clear bimodal weight distribution between heavy and light coins. On the sextans on the left, the heavy series, the main heavy series is the coin in red. The bars in red, the bars in blue are the very first series, the bunched up Mercury cloak, and the bars in yellow are the later light series. So these are the light series coins from the Luceria City Mint, very regular style, includes a Simuntia, not classified in RRC, and then it comes to a halt. It just stops because we think the activity had moved south into the field. So then moving on to the LT Mint series, basically, this is what we believe to be the mint associated with the field activity in the Apulia in general, but we don't know exactly where. We need to find out where. And the first of these coins all have the mint mark T in addition to L. I do not know what the letter T stands for, but I welcome any suggestions to what it might stand for, because it really means an outstep mint, a transferred mint, a relocated mint, a subsidiary mint for the city mint. The bottom right-hand coin is curious because that is classified in RRC as part of the club series. Well, it has no club in it. It has a sigma for Simuntia and has an L for Luceria that clearly belongs to Luceria and nothing to do with the RRC 27 club series from a decade earlier. Also note that the horse style from Pegasus is the same as the horse style from the Dioscurus on the coin on the Uncia. So what happened to the Uncia, Semuncia in the Crawford series? Well, that in fact turns out to be an italic coin without the word Roma and doesn't belong to the series at all. So after this series of coins with the secondary mint mark T, there was a large series, a very large series of coins struck where they dropped the T but in the same style, and now it includes the trians. And this was struck again to an 81 gram standard, as was the Luceria City Mint, but declining. And we have been unable to work out whether any separate issues within that decline. So for example, for the coin types T2.2a, Crawford classifies them as two weight standards, but we've looked at the weights and we find that all weights occur with the same dies, right from 10 to 17 grams in all styles, and you can't distinguish them. So yes, one day they may have said, yes, we're going to make the coins lighter, but there's no discernible boundary. So we just say you can't distinguish them. Then the rest of the series here, always consistent in style, does vary in weight depending on when there's overstrike. So for example, there's two Uncia in the top row here of the same type, one clearly much bigger than the other, but the one on the right is an overstrike. So that went on, just as with the Luceria City Mint, into a weight reduction, but this time a much more substantial weight reduction, not from 80 or 60 to 50s, but to approximately a standard about 35, 40 grams. 36 gram makes a round number in this instance. This is a series just from Semis to some sextons. There's no Uncia of this series, many overstrikes. I want to show you another weight diagram. This time is of the sextons and quadrands of these series. Now, this shows an interesting difference. What we see for the sextons, it's a classically single issue weight histogram. This is what we expect for one coin struck at one weight standard. What we see for the quadrands is one coin struck at two weight standards, which declines, but you can't see where the decline is because it's not bimodal, unlike the earlier diagram. In other words, what we have is an overlay of coins struck at 9 gram standard and coins struck at 6 gram standard, but you really can't pull them apart. We find that all of the coins were struck at use the same dies throughout. So again, as before, we just classify them as a single issue. And then onto this very fine-looking series of the final series, beautifully made in this field mint, very centrally struck, very fine style, and usually on fresh flans, quite a small issue. And this goes on then as a transitional to what would be then become the P mint. I'm first of all going to deal with Canusium City, though, because the P mint is quite a complex issue. Canusium City struck coins for a number of years, and a lot of the material used for overstrikes was that captured by over Acarnanian coins captured by Levinus in 211 BCE. So that provides an absolutely strict timeline. Now, there's very many mint mark variations in this series, the CA series. We've tried to show them all, but many times the mint marks are all flan or invisible. So, you know, there's other variations still to be discovered. Here, the whole series, probably considered continued for several years. some denominations, such as the Triente, always overstrikes. I then want to go on to the continuing field mint series, and what we're now dealing with is the field mint, which is mainly dealing with the troubles in central Apulia and around Canusium in the 2927 BCE period. Now, there was an initial series of very strange and extremely rare coins of just both P and L mint marks. I discussed this in the paper, but it does link them to the previous field mint series. The ass is well known, examples in Hanover, Naples, and New York. The semis and sextons are unknown, but I have explained in the paper how I have verified, for example, the semis, even though it looks unclear, I have found a reverse die match to another example in Freiburg, and that I have actually personally checked that there is a P mint mark in front of that coin. But this steps on to a large series of P mint mark coins, which more or less parallels what you see in Canusium in terms of denominations, except also includes quincunxes and dextantes. Very similar to Canusium coins in weight and style, and we believe that essentially there's garrison at Canusium and a garrison in the field outside Canusium. And then at some point or other, the troubles in 209, 207 required an emergency coinage issued, which was almost only overstrikes and with new die engravers. And clearly we don't know what happened, but it's an irregular coin issue that we can link in style to both the CA and the P issues. And the engravers on both sides are represented. So clearly they were copying C and PA issues, and it's a full range of denominations. What's interesting about this slide is Michael Crawford identified this series by putting against Crawford 56 a series of illustrations of variant style coins, but without knowing where they came from. Well, now we know where they come from. And at some point or other in the height of the trouble in Apulia, emergency situation was very bad, clearly. We end up with these lightweight asses, and these lasses were struck normally at 1/4 of an ounce and declining, and they're in very fine style, exactly mirroring either again P or CA issues, sometimes with P before prow, sometimes with L under, but still nothing to do with Luceria at this point. And then eventually declining into some very lightweight issues, still of good style, and then there was an associated and nothing to do with this issue, unofficial coins. So I want to do very long, large catalog, which I've shown you most of the coins. I want to leave you with this slide at the end to show approximately how things developed over the years. And of course, it all depended on the battles and issues in the field and what was going on. And we see that there's 2 mints with L mint mark, and 1 a field mint and 1 at Luceria, that we see that the field mint moves closer to Canusium and it's more involved, and it's associated with coins of Canusium. We see the emergency issues, and it's all more or less, in my view, proven through both the coins themselves and through fine data and the historical links. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate also all the RBW designations next to the bequests from that collection. All right, questions, anybody? If you could type into the Q&A section, not the chat, but the Q&A part, or raise your hand perhaps, and I think we can unmute you if anyone wants to get started. I had a question about while we're waiting for this to germinate, about the prominence of the prow motif. You know, this comes from Mylai, which is 50 years ago. Why so popular here and now? I mean, my own theory had to do with Livinus. As you see on your map, when you showed the theater of war, there was constantly a Livinus with an arrow. Either he's in Brundisium or he's off in Aetolia. I'm reminded of the passage in Livy and Polybius about the treaty with Aetolia, where the Aetolian League is on land and the Romans provide no less than 25 quinquiremes. And I wonder if, what the prow would mean to people using the coins.
Okay, so I know it's an excellent question. So if we look at the web and what it talks about Roman history, one of the things that's most prominent in the last decade or so are the prows from the First Punic War found in the waters south of Sicily. Some beautifully preserved examples that have gained a lot of news. And we also know that after the First Punic War and Romans had essentially their naval forces was the key issue in the First Punic War, is they set up the rostrum in the forum, and essentially the rostra basically relates to the piece at the front of the prow, which they put a speaking platform on top. For the Romans, the prow was the key symbol of their naval prowess over the rest of the world, so much so that their speakers' platforms had prows underneath them. So everybody initially would have known that a coin with a prow was an indication of Roman military strength. And that's why they use it for the coins from about 240 or 230 onwards.
Yeah, I see that, that it's from 240 onwards. I was just wondering that there seems to be a proliferation at this particular moment. And, you think Hannibal's trapped deep into enemy territory, and the control over the Navy or the control over the seas is even more prominent and exciting to keep hope alive, perhaps, among the Italians in the South.
Yeah, what I would also add is that the coinage from the earliest times, due to their Etruscan neighbors, they had a very large bronze coinage. They had enormous amounts of bronze, vast quantities of bronze. The bronze was a very cheap metal. So they essentially, much of their coinage from 240, 270 BC right up until 230 BC was mostly bronze by value. So the prow bronzes were to a great extent their main coin and not just the denarius. So it was pretty key to them. I mean, symbolic.
Thank you. I see a question from Seth Bernard in the Q&A. Can I ask if you've seen any interactions with the Apulian quadrigati, perhaps in terms of circulation or timing, or have any ideas, and this may be unanswerable, as to why we have war strikes in this region in bronze, not in silver?
Right, so I believe, and I think I've discussed this with Clive as well, is that, in fact, Clive actually told me about this, is that the emergency quadrigati probably come further to the south from Tarentum and may relate to the siege of Tarentum, and their issue may overlap with the early denarii. In other words, we may have had a year or more where there was quadrigati and denarii being issued, debased quadrigati. So what I would see is more that it's a different emergency, but part of the same series. Yes, it was related to the emergencies in Apulia in the late 210s, early 200s, but not exactly the same emergency as these ones.
Thank you. Keeping an eye, I'm trying to monitor Q&A and to see if anyone has visually raised hands as opposed to digitally raised hands.
I do understand it's a lot of material though, so and not easy to ask questions on. So, and it is a type catalog. So,
well, could I ask a question, Joel?
Please do, Sophia.
Thank you very much. Thanks very much for this, Andrew. It's extremely useful, especially for people like me who know very little about this coinage. So thanks very much. I just wanted to ask something. Did you mention that one of your coins was overstruck on an Acarnanian coin?
Yes, I mean,
What
not
was
only
that? What coin was that? What kind of Acarnanian coin was it?
these were.
It was a bronze.
So it's the bronze coins. It's the one with the man-headed bull.
The big man-headed bull coins.
The big man-headed bull coins. I do see that one or other of the Russos is on the call, and perhaps somebody we could perhaps bring them in. One of, I don't know whether it's Giuliano or Shiro in to comment if it's possible.
I was wondering how the Acarnanian coin got there, the bronze.
Because Levinus, Marcus Levinus in 211 BC, he devastated the Acarnanian area and basically
they probably brought them back then. Okay.
The whole of the coins there, brought them back, and then the overstriking that took place 211 and in subsequent years. So well known. So it's a specific military victory that relates to.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you very much.
Yeah, when I saw that part of your presentation, that just fueled the fires of the influence of Levinus and what was going on with him the prow. We'll see the prow in our later talks as well, but and I know it's everywhere, but it just seems so to resonate, be so symbolic at this time. But I was
Joel, could I ask that you bring one or other of the Russos in for a comment?
Oh, absolutely. I've had my eye on them, Andrew. Please, Giuliano, if you'd like to have a question, or
we were on the same thing. We have a question. I know. To be honest, we don't have a question. I mean, it's an excellent presentation, and we are very pleased that Andrew has made his work that he started with my father, but he has made, much more study. So, and as you know, my father was an amateur scholar in the sense that he was not a proper scholar. I mean, he knew very well Roman Republican coins. He collected them for all his life, and he had great intuition. So he sometimes he could see things, intuition, but it was for him sometimes very hard to give like a proper scientific or scholarship explanation to it. And very often, Andrew found the scholarship explanation for what he could see without, having a proper scholarship preparation. So, I mean, we really, want to thank Andrew for the work he has done. I think my father would have been very proud of him, and it would, I'm sure, we owe him a big thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. That's an extremely nice comment, and yes, I'm very proud to do this in honor of your father and of Rick, of course.
maybe one more question, if I could. I'm very curious about this idea of the field mint, and if you had anything to say about the history of that phenomenon or that institution. Where do we first get evidence of a field mint, and how does that extend through this period?
So we know a lot about field mints in the civil wars of the 40s and 30s BCE. And the reality is that I'm very curious as well. One thing to consider is that the number of people required to strike coins and the size of a mint workshop isn't a lot. It's easy to strike coins. The difficulty is making flans, and that partly explains why it is that we get so many overstrikes in the year. In other words, basically, you know, a group of 5 or 6 people can make dies and strike coins, but once you have to start melting metal and making flans, it becomes a big operation. So it's kind of understandable that some of the field mint issues we say were overstrikes. I don't know how the field mint operates, and I think it's a marvelous topic for some further research.
Yeah, yeah, we don't know, but we're sure the Romans did, and they're logistical wizards, aren't they? Clive, yes, you have a question?
Not so much a question. Firstly, to congratulate Andrew on an incredibly well-structured presentation. I didn't understand anything about his paper reading it, but now I understand everything. No, it was very well done. But the question I wanted to ask is what the use of these coins were. These were small coins. And it seems to be that this in the armies.
Yeah, so I do address that in my Taormina paper. And essentially what we have is that every place that struck coins struck them for their own purposes. So there was a specific purpose. Did you need to pay the army in silver? Did you need to supply camp money? Bearing in mind that the Romans, Carthaginians were sitting there for 7 or 8 years facing each other down. They had to buy wine and entertainment and so on. So they needed a regular camp money, and nobody else was going to supply it unless you made it yourself. You had to make your own money. In Luceria city, for example, there was the money made by the garrison. There was also the money made by the city. So it's a consistent thing. If you wanted money for your soldiers, you made it yourself, and it wasn't in order to promote wider commercial activities. It was because these were relatively permanent. They were permanent camps. I mean, we don't know where they were. I mean, we have to archaeological investigations need to ask where were the Romans located, and I don't know. But then you needed small denominations.
Yeah. And you could also look at, for example, the Assyrian coins in the British Civil Wars. You have the same thing, camps making coins because they need it even in wartime.
Yeah.
I think we have time for one more question. Suzanne, please.
I just wanted to add that, in the early imperial period, this was lasting. So there was a die was found in the camp of Indonesia in an officer's house. And the type is identified. And so we know, the Roman army, they prefer to strike on the spot.
Yes, excellent. They certainly
And
did.
it was a permanent camp.
Yes. Okay, well, thank you. That was,
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the American Numismatic Society's YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like our online resources, publication, and events, you can support the Society by becoming a member. And don't forget to check out our book and eBay stores. The links are below.